Welcome back, listeners and viewers, to another week of Education, the Teachers Talking Terror podcast, where myself, Mike,
and myself, Courtney,
are here to talk about another movie that Courtney has not seen. But we have a special guest this week. This week, I have combed through the entire environment of my home and found my firstborn child. My daughter, Ella, is here with us this week. Because she wants to talk about Scream being her first scary movie experience. Hi, Ella.
Hi.
Welcome to the show. Courtney, do you know Ella?
Just a little bit. She spent 9 months with me in the classroom. Well, 7.5.
Yeah.
She was a COVID kid, but yeah, 7.5 months with me in the classroom.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking with my wife this morning before the show, and I was like, it doesn't really seem like that big a deal to Ella. I'm like, but Courtney's, I'm like, you've been there in and out like of her life pretty much her whole life.
Yes.
It was just, a week ago that like Farm Day from way back, when she was 3 years old, and there's a picture of you, with her. And then it wasn't, I think it was that same year that you were in the county queen pageant, and I did your photos, and Ella was there in some of those photos, and that she's in your class, and
she was in my graduation photos.
Yeah,
some of them that you had taken.
She was in your graduation photos. You were in my class when she was born, not like the day or anything, but like I had you as a student when we had Ella as a child. So it's a nice little collection here. So. Ella, is there anything you'd like to share with the listening or viewing audience? Just anything about yourself. What you like, what grade you're in, things like that.
I'm in 6th grade and I like to crochet all the time.
Yes, you do, all the time. Like, to the point where we take it from you when it's punishment time. We don't take crochet from you, we just take certain colors of yarn from you as punishment. And so we're here this week to talk about Scream. It popped up on our radar 2 weekends ago. Ella, you were at a slumber party. Kind of share with us your slumber party first scary movie experience.
Well, I was there with my friends and we started watching it at like 12 because we had to wait for her siblings to fall asleep. But I was really excited to watch it, and me and my friends really liked it a lot.
And then what happened? What did one of your friends do to this movie?
Spoil it?
Yeah, spoiled it. We're going to spoil it a little bit here today, though, too. But that's okay, because this movie came out the day after my birthday back in 1996. And so if I know, Courtney, you haven't seen this movie prior to now. But in all fairness, this movie is like 27. Oh, it'll be 27 years old this year. And so jumping on the Scream train, like I was there when it came out. You two are new to the franchise. It'll be an exciting, fun time for us. But yeah, this definitely, and Courtney, I'm sure you can attest to it. This is a movie that I won't say loses its luster, but when somebody spoils the ending halfway through, it really pulls the rug out from under you in a movie like this.
100% yes.
Yeah, because there's something this movie did, and we'll get to it as we go along, that is not completely original, but still very kind of out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Being the old man of the group, let me provide just a little horror history of, not of the franchise, but just where we were. Well, we're sitting in the middle of the 90s, and horror movies in general have really fizzled out. They'd pop up every now and then. You'd have something inventive and something creative that would kind of, generate some buzz. But by and large, mid-90s horror 90s horror in general up to this point was terrible. And so, everybody, like, the 80s was ripe with it because you had the introduction and the building up of VHS. So studios realized they could make horror movies that did not have to go to the theaters. They could just put them straight on VHS and go to video stores, and they'd make just tons of money doing that. So you got your Friday the 13th and your Nightmare on Elm Streets, and Halloween was just in '78. And so you had these real tentpole horror franchises starting, and then just ran through the 80s and into the early 90s to where, you're looking at, almost 10 of each franchise at this point. So people were wanting something new, and there just wasn't really any new ideas out there. Horror wasn't really popular, wasn't a big thing. And then 1996 rolls along, and Wes Craven, who had directed the original Nightmare on Elm Street, strikes gold again with this very meta, very self-aware movie, Scream. And so what really made it really jump out was it's the first horror movie that really paid attention to horror movies. And so everybody, and it really freshened it up, because prior to this, every viewing experience kind of felt the same. You were sitting down and you were watching a movie where somebody you meet early on is going to end up being alive at the end, and everybody else is dead, and you got your final girl, and you've got all these little tropes of if you're romantic with somebody, that's not a good thing. It's gonna end up costing your life, and so you've got all of these paths that so many horror films have been using that really still apply here. Like, Wes Craven still used all of those ingredients, but at the same time, he's kind of poking, I don't say poking fun at them as much as they are like, hey, we live in a very horror-rich environment. There's so much stuff out there. What if we created characters that also experience those things? We created characters and teenagers that have seen the Halloweens and have seen the Nightmares on Elm Streets and have seen to where now they've built up this resistance to those things aren't scary anymore because they weren't scary anymore. And so when this movie pops up in 96, it takes everything that used to be scary, brings it all right back, but wraps it up in a little bow that says, hey, we're going to give you exactly what we've always given you, but we know what we're giving you this time. And so this hit, and the budget for this movie was like $14 to $15 million, and it made $173 million. It just took off. And just 2 weeks ago, Scream 6 came out. So 27 years later, they're still making Scream movies. There's been a TV show. It's huge. It's to the point where, we know, even around Halloween time, Courtney, what costumes are they specifically banning from students wearing to school?
Yeah, these kind of costumes. And it's like, even though I haven't seen the movie, I know that costume is from Scream.
Yeah, and it's just so cool because this movie, I don't think this movie works if you don't have a background of all of the other horror films, but yet it's kind of taken its own, and it's like, yeah, we put right there on the letters to parents, no Scream masks, and no, and it's like, that's just the power of this franchise. So I kind of rambled there, but I think it's important to just kind of lay the basis on why this movie became such a phenomena that it did. And it really lit a fire under, the rest of the 90s. You got movies, you got Scream, I know Scream 2, I believe Scream 3 also came out before the end of the decade. But you got movies like I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend. You got a lot of these, like, let's put a bunch of early 20 pretty faces in a cast, kill them off, and we'll see where we're going. So that's kind of the little bit of historical background, which is crazy to think mid-90s requires a historical perspective, but here we are.
Hey, 96 is the year I was born, so.
I know. So, you're getting old on me.
I
remember
know.
when you came into high school, and now we say that, and Ella here is a mere 3 years from high school.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, shall we get into the plot a little bit? Ella, we'll bounce back and forth. If there's any questions you have, any comments you want to, anything we're missing, jump in, all right? We want you to be more than just a pretty face on our podcast. So. All right, well, we kick it off with Drew Barrymore.
Yes, Drew Barrymore.
Which really, the way they handled Drew Barrymore in this movie, and again, I'll tie into a little historical when we get there, but I would say that Drew Barrymore was arguably the biggest movie star in this movie.
Yes.
Because she had been in things. Like, she was a name people knew. Nobody knew nobody knew clearly I'm drawing blank on names anyway. Like, nobody knew Nev Campbell, nobody knew Rose McGowan, nobody knew, like, all the teens that led the cast, nobody knew them. People knew who Drew Barrymore was. So we see her right away. And she's home by herself. She gets a phone call. She's just doing what a teenage kid's going to do at home. Making some popcorn, going to watch a movie. And she gets just this anonymous phone call. Obviously, this is pre-caller ID because otherwise you would have known who was calling you. She gets this anonymous phone call. Some guy just asking her, it originally was just a wrong number.
Yeah.
They start discussing scary movies. And then he calls her back like 2 more times. Like, she can't get away from him. And so he's harassing her. He starts just playing these just mind games with her. Like, I want to see who I'm looking at. And, she plays it. At first she plays it like a typical teenage girl. I don't have a boyfriend, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And, then she brings him up. And he starts threatening her, and things get really out of hand. And then she realizes that he's around. Like, he calls her Blondie. And, she turns on the patio lights. Ella, what does she see out on the patio when she turns on the lights?
Her boyfriend is tied up to a chair.
Yeah, he's like duct taped to a chair.
Yeah.
He's been beaten up quite a bit. And so it's just, we realize things are real. And so the killer wants to play a game.
He does.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you can tell he wants to play a game, not only like the question, but like she wanted to unlock the door. And he's like, no, I wouldn't do that. Because it's like, keep you inside and, play around a little bit.
He's got her right where he wants her. And so he's going to start quizzing her for horror movies. Of course, she is stressed to the max. But it's important to remember, it's still Drew Barrymore. Because in horror films prior to now, typically one of the first actresses you're given screen time to is probably going to be your survivor at the end. So, myself included, the audience is still at a very relaxed state, because even though it's heightening up for her, we know who she is. They've given her so much screen time, she's probably going to be the survir.
Yeah, you're not going to kill her off.
Right. Like, no, it's Drew Barrymore. You're going to kill Drew Barrymore.
No.
And so the guy on the phone asks her a question about who's the killer of the first Friday the 13th movie. And Ella, who does she say is the killer?
I can't remember his name.
Oh, you wouldn't survive this phone call. So,
yeah.
Jason. She's like a stat. It's Jason. Jason Voorhees. Well, another little spoiler alert for you here, Courtney. It's not Jason. Jason is not the killer in the first Friday the 13th movie. Jason doesn't become the killer until the second Friday the 13th movie. Unfortunately, though, we jumped in at part 6. So Jason's always been the killer for your Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah.
But Jason's not the killer in the first one. Scream ruined this for you and says, no, it's Jason's mother. So she loses. And she flips on the light, and like somebody's murdering Steve right there in front of her. And so, then we got this cat and mouse where he's in the house, her popcorn's burning, smoke's going all over, he's chasing her around the house, but again, everything is built up to, she's going to survive.
Yes.
Like, she'll get away. She gets outside. We see her parents coming down the road. We're like, oh, crisis averted. We're going to be okay. And then she like peeks in the window, and what does she see when she looks in the window?
The guy is right there.
He's right there. And he pops through the window. She starts running away. Chases her down and stabs her like right in the chest. Her parents pull up. They're walking in the house. Like, he's like just going to town with a knife. Like, we realize right now, like,
yeah,
she's supposed to live. Like, this isn't what you do to the most popular actress in your movie. You don't kill him. But he murders her right there. Like, we see it. she pulls the mask off. We don't see who has the mask on. Her parents go in the house. They see things are all just destroyed, because again, of the big fight they had and the popcorn's on fire. Dad tells Mom to go down the street to the Mackenzie's house. Does that sound familiar at all to you, Courtney? Probably not.
No. Well, is that who was in front? Maybe not. Is that the house that was across the street?
No. In the original Halloween movie, that's exactly what
Okay.
Jamie Lee Curtis says to the kids.
Okay.
When she takes them out of the closet upstairs, when she thought she had Michael Myers taken care of, she tells him, run down the street to the Mackenzie's house.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like okay. Yeah. Because that's like where.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
But it's like just shows how involved this movie is. Like they're lifting lines from other movies, to use here, to where like if you've seen Halloween, like I had, I'd be like, oh, look, good for you, way to go. So Mom she leaves on the front porch and she sees Casey hung from a tree, her intestines just dangling, and we're really like. We're in the movie like that. The credits haven't really even started yet.
Yeah, we're like not even 10 minutes in, and there's already 2 brutal kills.
Yeah, like very, very gory, brutal killing, and the star of the movie. So we thought, like they have even on the movie poster, they've got her like front and center. Like their marketing team was like, we want everybody to think that Drew Barrymore is the star, and then we're gonna kill her in the first 10 minutes because once we do that. Nobody knows what to expect.
No.
And again, but this isn't the first time they've done it, though. The first Psycho, which I feel like we probably shouldn't have watched this movie this early in the show because there's a lot of movies that I won't say are spoiled for you, but they did the same thing in the original Psycho. They put somebody in front of the screen for like 45 minutes to where you think they're the story, and then they kill them. And then you're like, oh, I have no idea where we're going now. And that's kind of what happened here. So, next day, it's a school day. And the town's just chaotic now.
Yeah. Yeah, because they still continued to have school after 2 people were brutally murdered. I will say though, real quickly, I love how like her parents went to call 911 and her mom could like hear her on the other line, like struggling to breathe.
Yeah.
It's like, her mom was like trapped in the moment of like, I know she's here, but it's like they could do nothing to help her because they couldn't find her.
They didn't. Casey, as like she's literally being drugged through the yard.
Yeah,
like on the way to be hung from that tree.
Yeah,
which is pretty amazing because you got to let a lot of stuff go. How did this person get that high up into the tree to hang her from? I don't remember seeing a ladder.
I was just wondering how she was still gripping the phone when she's dead. But
rigor mortis.
Yes.
It kicked in real quick for her.
Really quickly.
So, Ella, do you think if something like this were to happen, do you think we should have school the next day?
No.
No, I wouldn't say so. And so, we've got, which it's bizarre because, nobody in town seems to know what happened to them.
Yeah.
Yet there's TV crews lined up outside the high school.
Mm-hmm.
It just seemed weird. We meet, who is our main character of this movie, Ella?
Sidney Prescott.
Sidney Prescott. So we meet Sidney Prescott, who is also struggling with her own sadness. What happened to Sidney's family about a year before this happened?
Her mom got killed.
Yes, her mom was killed. And it was a big mystery on who did it. Sidney, she accused... to be fair, she accused a man of murdering her mom, and then this man was thrown in prison. And Gail Weathers, the news reporter, doesn't necessarily believe that the man was guilty. And so there's a lot of friction here between Sidney and Gail because of the way her mother's murder was handled. And Gail, just being a news reporter, is doing her due diligence of, I don't think this is what it was. And I understand Sydney being very hateful towards her because to Gail, it's her doing her job, but to Sydney, it was the murder of her mom.
Yeah.
And so we kind of get that introduced a little bit. There's a lot of characters introduced here.
Yeah, we've got Tatum and her boyfriend.
Yeah, Stu.
Stu, who is Shaggy on Scooby-Doo.
Yep, yes he is.
And I did recognize Sydney from The Craft.
Yeah.
I had to look her up on IMDb because I was like, where have I seen that mouth before? Because I was like, I know I've seen that.
Yeah, Neve Campbell. I don't remember. I'm going to look real quick. I don't remember if The Craft came out first. The Craft, same year. Both of them 96.
Okay. She was a busy girl.
Yeah, it was a big year for her. I feel that... I know that... Well, this coming out in December. I know The Craft came out first. Of course, who knows when they filmed this stuff. But I feel, not that it matters, but she's like significantly smaller in this movie than she was in The Craft. I felt, I don't know, like she'd lost quite a bit of weight for this movie. And again, it doesn't matter. That's not me being, weight shaming or anything like that, but it just... If you were to see both these movies and be told, yeah, they came out within months of each other, you'd be like, really? And so, yeah, like you said, we meet Tatum, which is Sydney's best friend, Stu, her boyfriend.
This other, I don't even remember his name. He was just kind of like a fifth wheel in the group.
Ella, what's the name of the guy that likes all the scary movies?
Randy?
Yeah.
Randy.
Randy.
And... oh my goodness, Sydney's boyfriend, who is...
What's his name, Ella?
Billy.
Billy, yes. And he is off of Riverdale, which you have not seen, but, oh, man, he's a looker.
Billy Loomis, which is kind of funny because they name him Billy Loomis. Courtney, do you remember the name of the doctor in Halloween?
No.
Dr. Loomis.
Okay.
So, and then that character,
lots of ties.
That character, Dr. Sam Loomis in Halloween, is named after a important character in the movie Psycho, whose name is also Sam Loomis. So we've got a lot of... I mean, this movie has a ton of layers.
Yeah.
And as we watch more and more horror films, like I think... you could revisit this and be like, like it just tastes so much better now that I understand all the layers that went into this. So yeah, we've got really, like you said, this crew, this team of, like Sydney and Tatum as best friends, and then their boyfriends, Stu and Billy, and then Randy. And I kind of like the way they introduce all of them. They're like sitting outside around a fountain and just discussing what happened. So like we get like one scene, all five of them, but we get to see how different all their personalities are too.
Yeah. Yeah. Billy's kind of like that bad boy.
Yeah.
And Stu is just kind of like, I don't know. He's just like that too much friend that is kind of annoying.
Yeah.
And Randy's just there for a good time, it seems like.
Yeah. Billy, coincidentally, Skeet Ulrich, the name of the actor, who also was from The Craft.
I didn't recognize that.
Yeah. He was also in The Craft. He's the one that they put the love spell on.
How did I not recognize that?
I don't know. But Skeet Ulrich looks a lot like Johnny Depp in the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, to the point when this movie came out, a lot of people thought, is that Johnny Depp? And so the first time we meet him is when he's coming in through Sydney's window. Mm-hmm. Well, again, he's coming in through Sydney's window the same way that Glenn came in through Nancy's window in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Climbed up the railing and pops in through the window. So again, it's like Wes Craven directed both movies. He finds actors that nobody really knows, like Johnny Depp and Skeet Ulrich, who look very much alike, and then basically has them doing the same thing. But again, as a horror fan, you're like, hey, They did that in Nightmare on Elm Street. So again, just the layers of this movie are so awesome. So we know that Sydney and Billy do not have the most physical relationship.
Right.
Which is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which again is now that we've got Casey out of the way, it really is setting up Sydney as like the virtuous, the good girl, like, oh, she's going to be the one. She's going to make it. Like, you're starting to reestablish yourself. Like, okay. Like, I can see it now. You teased us, now we're in. And so, yeah, we've got the crew, and Sydney's kind of disgusted because of all of the just real hardcore, like, way they're describing what happened to Casey and Steve. You've got, Billy, who, again, like you said, just kind of this brooding, Randy is Randy. Like, Randy reminds me a lot of myself. Like, oh, I've seen so many horror movies. And then Tatum's very protective of Sydney.
Yes. Which makes me wonder why she's with Stu. Because it's like, he's sitting here talking about how you could chop someone open. And it's like, almost a year ago that happened to her mom.
Exactly. Which, of course, we come to find out they knew that already. So and so, there's just... Oh, where are we at? So Sydney's at home because she's going to stay at Tatum's. Sydney's got this just sprawling house that her dad left on a business trip. So Sydney's home by herself. She's going to go stay with Tatum. And she gets a phone call. Ella, tell us a little bit about this phone call.
She picked it up and she thought at first that it was Randy because he was talking a lot about, like, horror stuff. And then he said that he wasn't Randy, and then she ended up going outside because he said that he was out there. And she was, like, doing things to see if he could see her. So then she went back inside.
She's, like, picking her nose.
Yeah. And then she went back inside, and then he had got in there when she was outside. Because she left the door open.
Yeah. And I like how she had mentioned in that phone call how she's like, scary movies are all the same. There's just this pretty girl with like a big chest and she runs up the stairs, and then it's like, now she's the pretty girl running up the stairs.
Exactly.
Like, girl, you set yourself up.
I know. It's like they telegraph everything they're going to do, and then they do it, and it's still effective though.
Yes.
Yeah. So the killer comes, Ghostface as they refer to him. He comes jumping out of the closet. Very clumsy, the killer. That's one thing that I do enjoy about these movies is they because our killers in the Scream movies aren't supernatural, they are clumsy in that they're, they get running too fast and they'll slip and fall, or, and sometimes, you're just like, oh, come on. But you're like, no, that's probably realistic that you're, you can't cut corners that fast. So Sydney runs up to her room and, like she does this cool little, like, the layout of her room is ridiculous, where she's got two doors that basically share a hinge.
Yeah, seriously.
But it does work out nicely here as she opens her closet door, which just so happens to jam up the doorknob of her entry door. So when the killer tries to get there, it can't get in. She calls 911 on the computer. The killer runs away. And then, Ella, who pops up in the window?
Billy. And then
Billy does.
And he comes in and she's saying, like, the killer's in the house, and then the phone falls out of his pocket, and then she gets mad at him and runs away. That's when I started to think that it might be him, because he had a phone. And then the killer was gone once he got there.
I'm right there with you, Ella, because it's like every time the killer was... You never saw Ghostface and Billy, like, so far you haven't seen them in the same spot, and so I was like... Okay, maybe.
How can the killer be there and Billy also be there, but you don't ever see them cross paths? Again, the filmmakers did a great job of... They call them red herrings in the movie, where they are things that, like, they are intentional things that they do when they're making the movie to like, really get you to lean one way or the other. And they do that a lot in this movie. Yeah. Like, every character they introduce, it seems like they give you a reason why you should suspect them. You know, Billy dropping the phone, Randy having an extensive knowledge of horror films. You know, the principal, which we'll get to, like the police chief has the same boots that we've seen. They're just like every character they introduce, you get the vibe of it's them. So yeah, so she runs from Billy. She's already called 911. You know, she runs from Billy. Of course, she's like, you know, Sydney, wait. She runs and you know, she gets to the front door, opens the front door. What's at the front door, Ella?
Dewey, and he's like holding the mask in front of the door.
Right, because that's how people knock on doors. They
yeah, he was like facing away and just holding the mask there.
Right, purely done just to scare us, because we were supposed to think that Ghostface is at the door and that Billy was not there. So Billy they take him to the police station. I won't say they arrest him, but they take him to the police station. And Sydney goes to Tatum's. Okay, I mean, it's all laying out that, must have been Billy. He had a phone. He's been making calls. Like, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
So Billy's basically in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Sydney's at Tatum's. What happens next?
It said later in the movie that he got one call, and then Sydney gets a call at Tatum's house, and she picks it up, and it's the same voice that called her at her house.
Yeah, Ghostface calls Tatum's house to talk to Sydney.
Yeah.
And again, so we're like, oh, on one hand, we could easily be thinking Billy didn't do it because he's in jail. But like you said, Ella, Billy had a phone call to make. So maybe he did call her.
Yeah, he said he called his dad, but he didn't pick up. But then why would he call his dad at anybody?
Right. So, Ella, you made a good point, too, that when Sydney's on the phone with Ghostface at Tatum's, then she yells for Dewey, and Dewey comes to talk on the phone with his gun drawn.
Yeah.
What's he going to do? I don't know.
Shoot the phone?
We skipped over a little bit. I guess so. I'm going to get you. I want you to hear me shooting the gun so you know
hear what I'll do to you. Yeah.
So yeah, we did skip over the part where Sydney and Tatum and Dewey are going to leave the police station, and they cut out through the back door because of all the commotion. And Gail kind of gets an idea to go to the back door, so she and Sydney cross paths again. And again, we just amp up this hatred even more. Where Sydney is kind of bickering with her. Gail says something about, I'll send you a copy of the book when it comes out. And Sydney just levels her. Just a right cross, just punches her right in the face. So we get the idea that, things are not going well. They let Billy go the next day because, it's not him. Because Sydney got a phone call and Billy, it clearly couldn't have been him because he was in jail. So now who does everybody think is the killer?
Sydney's dad. Yeah,
it shifts over to Sydney's dad because all of this started about the same time he left town. And we don't know where he's at. Nobody can get a hold of him. And they trace the cell phone call, and it traces back to Sydney's dad's phone. So right now, we're like, oh, this makes sense. It's been a year. He's going on a murderous rampage since his wife was killed. Like, again, if you've seen enough horror films, you start to be like, oh, okay, I could understand this. They finally suspend school.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, why it took this long even. And the poor Sydney, like, people are running down the halls in the Ghostface mask because they can just, buy them anywhere. Right. And she gets really shaken up as she is almost attacked again in the bathroom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that part. She's in there kind of hiding. Well, she's in there going to the bathroom, and then a couple of girls walk in and start, talking bad about her and her mom. So that she's listening in on that. So she's already upset. And as she leaves, she gets attacked in the bathroom.
Yeah, right before that part.
Thankfully, though, nothing happened.
That was when like Billy ran into her, and then she went to the bathroom, and then the killer was in there again.
Oh, that's right, at school. Yeah, Billy. Yeah, that's
and
a
I
good
realized
point.
that
I
it
didn't
looked
think
like
about that. Billy gets
his jeans and his shoes. That's like before the costume fell down. It looked like his shoes that he was wearing.
Yeah. So again, they do that on purpose. Billy, we know, is at the school, like you said, because he got out of jail and wanted to make sure he made it to fourth period.
And he showed Sydney like the ink and stuff that they had put on his fingers for his fingerprint and stuff, because there was like the black spots on his fingers.
Yeah, so he spent the night in jail. They must have had, like, if I got released from jail, I don't think I would have gone straight to school.
No.
I don't care, even if it was like pizza day. I don't think I would have gone.
Bosco stick day, maybe.
Maybe for Bosco's. But Ella, what lunch would the school have to serve for you to go straight to school after getting out of jail?
I don't know. I wouldn't go to jail anyway.
Oh, good choice. Nice work. You make me proud. So yeah, you're right though. Like all this builds up of like Billy's at school. Like you said, Ella, looks like his jeans, looks like... See, a lot of this, too, I've seen this movie so many times that, like, I miss some of the details because I've seen it so many times. And so, yeah, school's out. You know, the principal, who's played by Henry Winkler, who played the Fonz on Happy Days, you know, he gets a hold of those two kids that have been running through the school dressed as Ghostface. And he's got, like, the noisiest pair of scissors as he's cutting up their masks, and then he just he does. I think we talked about it in recent weeks. One of the things that just cracked me up. It was during the prom night episode, which again is probably a tie into this of the principal just expelling kids.
Yeah, you're expelled.
You know, it wouldn't surprise me because again. Prom night, another movie where the killer's making phone calls. Mm-hmm. So you can't. So prom night definitely influenced this movie. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they had the principals expelling kids at just because.
Yeah, it's. I mean, this principal is aggressive. Like,
oh yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Principals, they need to stand their ground, but this one's like cussing at the kids, like putting the scissors to him and everything.
Yeah. He's had enough.
Like, whew, he is angry.
Yes, he is. He's had enough. And so he gets over. He suspends school. He says there's a police enforced curfew. Basically, go home and be safe, kids, because. Y'all dying.
At one point with the principal, when he had the scissors, what made me think it was him is because, like, on one of the kids, he put the scissors right where, like, Casey got stabbed. So, like, that's what I thought was him because it was almost the same spot.
Yeah. And like you told me, you know, after you saw it, then he puts the mask on.
Yeah, the one that he hadn't cut up and is, like, looking at himself in the mirror.
Like, every time he would take the mask off, he would jump at his... like face in the mirror. Yeah,
right. It was a fun little throwaway. You know, Henry Winkler, the actor who played the principal. Like I said, he also played Arthur Fonzarelli on Happy Days, which Ella's way before you. Courtney, it's way before your time. But I have a feeling you were probably a little bit more aware of what Happy Days.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of it? Okay.
Yeah.
But when the principal, when he goes to the closet, he has a leather jacket hanging up in the closet, which is just fun because he's most well known for being the Fonz, and you know, which wore a leather jacket all the time. And so him having a leather jacket in his closet was just kind of a fun little touch. What happens to the principal, Ella, even before he gets to leave school that day?
He keeps hearing knocking at his door, so he keeps looking out of the door. And there was no one there, so then he heard knocking again, so he opened it and walked around, and he was getting pretty mad. And then the janitor looked like, what's his name? Freddy Krueger, I think? And his name was Freddy.
Freddy Krueger, yeah.
So he called him Freddy, and then once he got back in the office, then the killer was right behind the door.
The guy who played the janitor in this movie is Wes Craven, the director of the movie. So he's also the creator of Freddy Krueger. So him, again, just fun seeing him dressed up as Freddy Krueger, being a janitor, which is what Freddy Krueger was before he was burned alive. He was a janitor.
I feel like they could have...
and so it's just kind of fun.
I feel like they could have prevented getting hurt or killed if they would just close the door after they leave a room. Because he's always in the room after he leaves and leaves the door open.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody just leaves their doors open, and that's the end of their demise. So, listeners out there, if you want to feel safer, just close the door behind you. All kinds of doors. Cabinet doors, like, it doesn't matter. Closet doors. Just close your doors. All of them. Car doors. And so, the principal gets killed, and everybody in town is doing the rightful thing. They're going home to obey their curfew, and they're staying away from large groups, right?
Everyone except a few people.
Everyone except all of them, who all then go to Stu's house for this giant party to celebrate the school being closed. Like,
these
are people that they know.
Yeah, this reminds me of COVID because it's like you had some people following the rules, but then you had some people like, school's out, let's just party and have, it 100% reminded me of COVID. But also when Gail is like, after everything had happened, and she's like talking about, oh, this country house. It's like, honey, this is not a farmhouse. Yeah. Like, do you know what a farmhouse is? All of these kids have just like unbelievably beautiful houses. Yeah. And I can't get over it. Just, wow, they're so nice.
It's an affluent part of the country. Yeah, they all have money. They all have money. All of them. So we hit our third act where Stu's hosting a party and everybody's there. Which sometimes it seems like there's a lot of people there, and then sometimes it seems there's not.
Yeah, when they're watching from like the van, it's like, oh, there's like 12 people there. But when they're pulling up, it's like there's like 30 cars.
Yeah, it's like maybe they all just pulled up in front of Stu's house to go party somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right. We told our parents we're going to Stu's. And so Gail shows up at the party because she expects Ghostface to show up. Mm-hmm. It makes sense. Dewey's there. Dewey being a deputy. Tatum's older brother, like we mentioned. He's also there because he's a cop and he wants to make sure things are okay. And so far so good. Things seem to be fine. This is really when the movie lays on. Like, Randy even gets up and he starts talking about the rules of a horror movie. You don't do this, you don't do that. And then naturally everything that he says don't do happens in the course of the next half hour. Tatum, Stu needs a new beer. His beer's getting low, and Tatum's like, I'm going to go get a drink. And so she heads out to the garage to get beers out of the garage fridge.
She grabs like 10.
Right.
Yeah. Because she doesn't want to go back out there.
No, I don't blame her. And so who shows up in the garage with Tatum, Ella?
Ghostface again.
And she makes a daring getaway, right? First I think she throws all 10 beers at him.
Yeah.
Yeah, she goes out there and then she gets them and then they lock the door. So then she tries to go through the garage and then he's there. So then she tries to throw the drinks at him so he'll leave her alone.
It doesn't work. Matter of fact, she almost gets away.
She does, and it was a very clever idea.
Yeah.
Crawling through the cat door. Because why not?
Yeah, an idea that actually worked because Rose McGowan, the actress, they actually had a problem because she kept falling through it. They ended up, I saw in the trivia, they ended up like stapling her skirt to the door so that she couldn't go all the way through. Because she had no problem getting through this cat door. But they didn't need her to, and so she does. She tries to get through the cat door, and Ella's favorite part of the movie,
she gets stuck. I feel like she could have very easily just pushed back out of it, and then she wouldn't have been stuck anymore.
Right, but instead, Stu's family has the most powerful garage door in the history of garage doors.
Yeah.
As Ghostface just starts to open the garage door, lifting this 110-pound, 120-pound girl along with it. I don't know, but I doubt garage doors are built to handle the additional weight of a second garage door.
Yeah, no.
And still have the torque power to crush her head against. It was still a fun little effect.
It was. Because I thought maybe like any other garage door, it hit and then go back down.
Yeah. No, this was 96. They hadn't created that, I guess. But no, it goes up, and Ella, what did you think the first time you saw her head crushed?
It looked funny. I could tell it was a mannequin or something because it looked like a Barbie head.
Yeah, it looked a little goofy, but yeah, it crushes her poor head, and Tatum's just dead. Ghostface, and this is the part that could really, if you knew how the movie was going to end, you could start to see some of it come to light here. Tatum tried to go into the house through the garage door and couldn't get it open because it was locked. Ghostface, after Tatum's death, goes to the back door, and the door's unlocked. So he just goes right back in the house. So that
maybe he unlocked it and then didn't lock it again.
True. But yeah, it was a situation where it was just kind of odd because she tried to go back in and it was locked, and then it wasn't until later. So Tatum's dead. This is when somebody calls Stu's house, and what you said, Ella, when we finished it this morning, this was like the only phone call in the entire movie that it wasn't someone trying to kill somebody. Randy picks up the phone.
Yeah, except they did say that. They said that the principal was hanging from, like, the football post at the school.
And so everybody took off to go see that. Again, Gail is on a walk with Dewey because she's trying to sweet talk him and romance him into, just getting information for her story. Kenny, the cameraman, when everybody runs and leaves the house, this is where he realizes that there's about a 30-second delay because when Gail went into the party, she smuggled in a camera so that they could get a live feed. But it's like a 30-second delay on this live feed as Kenny sees everybody running out of the house before he sees them on camera running out of the house. This is the most cut to the most uncomfortable part for Ella to watch is when Sydney decides, I've been putting Billy off long enough. It's the anniversary of my mom's murder, and several people I know have also been murdered, including the principal of my high school. I think it's time to get romantic.
Yeah. Yeah, let's...
Okay. And so Billy and Sydney are doing what they're doing up in a bedroom. And when they finish, this is when you had mentioned earlier, Ella, that Sydney starts asking Billy, who did you call when you were in jail? And he said, I called my dad.
Yeah, he said that he called his dad, but he didn't answer. And she was like, one of the deputies called your dad. And he said, well, he didn't answer when I called him.
So one of the deputies called. Right. And then, and Sydney had asked, I thought maybe you used your one phone call to call me to throw me off the scent. Mm-hmm. Because she did. She got that phone call at Tatum's.
Yeah.
To which Billy then, understandably so, gets a little defensive. What do I have to do to prove to you it wasn't me? And then, as he's finishing saying this, they have a visitor in the room. Who comes in the room with Billy and Sydney?
Ghostface again. That was the part where...
Go ahead.
Ghostface. That was the part where I was like, maybe it's not Billy.
Well, yeah.
So that was the first time where I saw Ghostface and him.
Right, yeah. Ghostface and Billy are in the same room at the same time. And even more so, Ghostface appears to start stabbing Billy and kill him.
This is where my doubts came in because I was like, man, I was for sure that Billy was the killer.
Right. Yeah, because they did everything to lead you down that path. And so we're like, oh, okay, it's somebody it's not, Again, Sydney gets out of it. She runs out to she like runs out to the van. You know, she sees Kenny out there in the van, so she runs out there. They get locked in the van, and they're watching the footage. Cut to Randy, who's still in the house. He's drunk, but he's still watching Halloween. And a part that I was explaining to Ella, which was, it's one of my favorite parts, just because it's so inventive, is you've got Randy on the couch watching Jamie Lee Curtis on Halloween as Michael Myers is sneaking up behind her.
Yeah.
And he's talking to her in the movie, watch out, Jamie, look behind you, as Ghostface is coming up behind him. Mm-hmm. But what makes it even more fun is the actor who plays Randy, his name is Jamie Kennedy. And so it's almost like, even if Halloween's not on,
yeah,
he's saying out loud what we're all thinking of, hey, look out behind
he's telling himself to go.
Yeah. You know, by talking to the actress Jamie Lee Curtis, he's only using Jamie. It's like he's talking to himself. Like, look out behind you. Kenny sees this about to happen. He kind of fears for Randy, forgets about the 30-second delay, slides open the door because he's going to run in the house to help try and save things. And he meets his demise as Ghostface slits his throat.
And he sees that the door's open.
Yeah, oh, that's right. He opens it. He sees...
Yeah, I saw that the door's open, and then he got scared.
So once again, I think you're onto something here, Ella. Kenny looks outside. He sees the front door to the house is open, and the van door is now open, and now he's dead. You leave a door open, you die in this movie. That's how it works. And so... You know, he starts to come after Sydney. She escapes the back of the van. He does stab her in the chest, though, which never really made any difference to her physically for the whole rest of the movie. Like, he stabbed her right up here in the shoulder muscle and didn't phase her. Like, she had full use of that arm the whole rest of the movie. She,
held it for a second, and then she was crawling.
Yeah, she probably just...
through the van.
She probably had a Band-Aid and just put a Band-Aid on it.
It's a wet paper towel.
Yeah, that's what it was. It's a mint. Here's a peppermint. You'll be fine. And so, so she starts headed towards the house. Gail comes back, gets in the van, sees Kenny is dead. She starts to drive away. Sydney jumps out into the road. Gail gets thrown off. She crashes the van. We think Gail's dead now. Mm-hmm. We don't see her, but she took a header to a tree.
You forgot the part where Dewey and Gail are walking down the road when all the cars are speeding, and then he finds her dad's car.
Yeah, this was kind of fun. Yeah, because like you said, Dewey and Gail.
Because then he was like, "What's his car doing?"
Right, they're walking, and all those kids that just took off to go see the principal hanging from the goalpost almost run Dewey and Gail down. Yeah, this all happened obviously before, so they almost run,
and they're just standing there.
Right, Dewey's just saying, "Slow down!" Like you're standing in the middle of the road with the car speeding it. But then again, this is a guy who answered the phone with a gun, so I don't think he's going to climb higher than deputy. So it was kind of fun because they dive out of the way. Gail lands and Dewey lands on top of her. He kisses her. And then she turns her head and sees the car. She goes, "Is that what you're looking for?" And he goes, "My whole life." And no, you're right, Ella. Thank you for kicking that in. Turns out it's Sydney's dad's car. It's been abandoned in the woods, which further solidifies him as the suspect.
Yes.
Because he's supposed to be gone on business, but he's not. People have been dying. Numbers traced to his cell phone. And we've seen Billy get killed. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's got to be Sydney's dad.
Yeah.
And so they head on back. Dewey goes into the house. Gail goes in the van. She starts to drive away. This is when she wrecks the van. Sydney starts running towards the house. Dewey comes out of the house, but he's been stabbed in the back.
Yeah.
So there's Ghostface. It's Ghostface and Sydney. It's down to these two. Sydney runs to Dewey's police vehicle. Ghostface chases her down. She locks the doors. Ghostface has the keys.
Yeah.
Another one I just thought was a really cool shot is she's back and forth trying to keep the front doors locked, and we see the back hatch open up. and we're like, uh-oh, like he's got her cornered. She doesn't
Yeah.
even know it. She somehow gets away though.
At least she's trying to close the door.
She was.
Yeah.
Instead of just leaving them open.
She's caught on. She's like, let's get these doors shut. And then he opened one on her.
That's why she's lasted as long as she has.
Right. She knows her manners and closes her doors. So she gets out and heads into the house. Again, we believe everybody's pretty much gone except her and Ghostface. She heads into the house, and who comes stumbling down the stairs, Ella?
Billy.
Actually, not yet. Go ahead. I think you're...
Yeah, before she goes in the house, it's Stu and Randy, and they're both chasing her.
That's right.
And Randy's like, it's Stu, and Stu's like, it's Randy, so then she closes the door, and then Billy starts, like, falling down the stairs.
Yeah, because she took Dewey's gun.
Yeah.
And they're both pleading with her, let us in, it's him. And which she's just like, screw you both. You know, like, I'm surviving here. And this is, like you said, this is where Billy comes falling down the stairs. And he looks rough.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he looks bad. Randy gets in the house. Like, he lets him in.
Sydney had given Billy the gun because
right.
she trusts, like, she's like, this, I trust you.
Yeah, I saw you get stabbed.
This is where they had decided to let Randy inside.
That's right. I couldn't remember how Randy got in. They opened the door. Randy comes in because Stu had run off.
Yeah, and Billy, this is like where Billy reveals himself, kind of.
Yeah, Randy was like, Stu's gone mad, and then Billy shoots Randy.
Yeah, actually, he turns around and he goes, "We all go a little mad sometimes."
Yeah.
And then even goes, and they even said Anthony Perkins, Psycho. So another Psycho reference as he shoots a hand cannon at Randy.
Yeah.
Like, I've never been shot, but I don't know if the power of a bullet from 8 feet away is going to knock me clear off my feet, like through the air. Like, but yeah, and then
Sydney flew backwards.
Yeah, Sydney then does a double take at Billy because again, like, he's one heck of an actor.
Yeah, and she's like in his arms right now.
Yeah,
like, being saved.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's like, wow, this is all done like a full circle to her, and he reveals that. Like, the stuff on him, it's not really blood.
Just
He's like, it's what they used in Carrie. And starts licking his fingers. And Stu walks in.
Yeah. She goes to run to the kitchen to get away from Billy and runs into Stu. And for a moment, almost relaxes, like, oh, thank God, like somebody's here. It's Billy. And this is where we, everything really reveals itself. Because she's like, Stu, and then he just raises that voice changer up. And starts talking to her through the voice changer. And this is when Sydney and everybody watching realizes there's 2 killers. They had never really done 2 killers before. Like this, 1996 is about the first time that anybody effectively pulled off 2 killers. So now Sydney, she's trapped now. Like, both killers are there with her.
And Stu does this, like, they talk about how they're gonna, like, they're gonna kill her, and he goes, wait, but we have a surprise, you won't believe it, and he breaks one of the rules. He's like, I'll be right back.
Right, yep.
And he comes in with her dad.
Yeah, Sydney's dad, yep.
All bound up with duct tape and everything, and they're like, we're gonna pin it on him, because why not? They put the little voice thing in his pocket. They put the phone in his pocket.
Yep. We've got it all set up. We're going to kill you. We're going to almost kill ourselves. We're going to injure ourselves severely. And, and it's going to be perfect. We find out that the reason why Billy has been doing all of this is because... Sydney's mom had been having affairs around town. And one of the people that she had been romantic with was Billy's dad, which broke up his family. And so it was revenge on that. So Billy was the one that killed Sydney's mom. and pinned it on Cotton Weary, who was another gentleman that she had been having a relationship with. So Sydney's mom really is the person who's at fault for all of this.
Yeah, for her morally poor decisions.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, so that's what they're going to do is they're going to get each other. You know, we're going to stab each other, and then it's all going to roll together. We're going to call 911. We're going to kill you, and it'll be your dad that goes to prison. And so they do start taking turns stabbing each other. I think underestimating how much that hurts.
Yeah.
Because they both react like, ooh, we really didn't think it was going to be that bad. Mm-hmm. And then as they're doing it, who escapes? Who escapes, Ella?
Sydney and her dad.
Yeah, Sydney and her dad.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because it's like Billy has definitely gone off the deep end here. Like,
oh yeah,
he's just slashing at Stu, and Stu's like, "Hey man, I'm starting to feel a little lightheaded.
Like, I feel a little woozy here.
Maybe you should stop."
Because again, Billy is nuts.
Yeah.
Stu is also nuts, but he even makes a joke about, you know, what are you gonna do? You know, because Sydney takes off with even before this, Gail shows up again. Yes. And she's got the gun, and we're like, oh, Gail, the person who Sydney cannot stand is going to be the savior. And she forgot to take the safety off of the gun, and so she ends up getting taken out. And then all of this happens, but Sydney and her dad had escaped, but they're still in the house. Yeah. They've taken the phone, they've taken the voice changer, and so they're going to do this. And so now Stu and Billy start stabbing each other. So neither one of them are of full strength. No. And then Sydney calls.
Yeah, I loved this part because it was like the perfect, like there was fear in Billy's face when he answered this phone. Yeah. Because he's like, oh crud.
Yeah,
like,
the tables have been turned.
As it would, like, it would be scary because it's like they know what they did after the phone call. Right. And she doesn't use the voice disguise thing for long because she's, like, screaming at them. Yeah. And then she jumps out of the closet.
With a Ghostface costume on.
Yeah. And a sharp umbrella.
Yeah, stabs Billy with the world's sharpest umbrella. Like...
Which can't be that sharp, so it's
to be fair, if you have that much shove behind it, you're probably penetrating.
Yeah, so. And so we assume like he's dead because he's been penetrated several times with that umbrella. Yeah, and she gets Stu too. Ella, how does she kill Stu?
She pushes the TV onto his head.
And he electrocuted him.
Yeah, he comes at her like full speed, and she just does this fun little fall to my back and like kick him over my head, and then like you said, and then drops him. And they're not flat panel TVs like we have today. She didn't drop a 32-pound television on him. She dropped those TVs. We have one of those in our basement. Those things are a couple $100. Like,
yeah, they're heavy.
Yeah, so she dropped that sucker right on his head. So yep, Stu's out of the picture. Yeah, and so we've got, Gail's back.
Because Billy comes back he comes back to attack her, and this is where Gail makes her last appearance and shoots him, and she's like, didn't forget to take the safety off that time.
Right. Randy's still alive, which is nice. I feel like he's just been laying there playing dead for a while.
But his comment was so funny. Like, she's like, Randy, I thought you were dead. He's like, good thing I'm a virgin. I was like, oh,
it pays off, yeah. And so, but he even says, and again, something that happens in horror movies. He goes, this is that time where, the killer is going to come back for one last scare. And Gail, Sydney takes the gun. Billy does kind of pop up, shoots him right between the eyes. So now Billy's dead, Stu's dead, Gail, Sydney, and Randy are all still alive.
And And her dad, as he falls out of the
closet.
As
the dad, yeah, because we had forgotten about him again.
Yeah.
As the police arrive, we find out Dewey's not dead. And the movie ends with Dewey being taken off in an ambulance. I'm assuming everybody else had too, except for Gail, as she apparently quickly hired on a new news crew.
Yeah, someone who was fast enough to keep up with her.
Must have been the AV kids from the high school. And so she does this impromptu little news report about what happened the previous night, and that's the end of the movie. That's Scream.
Something that really did kind of like, not a lot of this bothers me, but when, back up a second, when Billy attacked Sydney and she like dug her finger in the hole that the umbrella made, I was like, oh, like that hurts.
Yeah, because that's something you can almost relate to. Like,
yeah.
I can't relate to being stabbed by an umbrella, but I can relate to what it might feel like being re-stabbed in my umbrella hole. So, yeah, that's Scream. That's Scream. So, that's the first horror movie my daughter has seen.
It was. I loved this movie. It was so good.
She's now seen it 3 more times. And she was like, "When could I watch Scream 2?" I do, Ella. I think we should have you back once a month. As our little Scream princess, our little Scream queen. We'll have you back once a month and we'll cover the next Scream movie each month. Does that sound like fun? Does that sound like fun? Okay. Yeah, shaking your head on a podcast doesn't really work because people need to hear. They can't hear your head shaking. So yeah, that'll be fun. Let's get to the grade book phase of the show. Courtney, we'll start with you.
I'm giving this. Yes.
Oh, yeah, of course you can. Yeah.
One of my favorite lines from Stu was when she called the police and then he was like, "My mom and dad are going to be so mad at me." That part was funny.
Yeah. It was because he was feeling a little woozy and and like Billy throws the phone at him and he does it just, "My mom and dad are going to be so mad."
Didn't you say that like he made that part up? Like it wasn't in the script.
He just improvised. Yeah, he just improvised that line as they were filming. So that was fun little impromptu by Stu there. So all right, so Courtney, what's your grade?
I'm giving this one a solid A. I really like this movie. It had like a few jump scares. The blood and gore was wonderful, and the twist and just like the unexpectedness behind it all, I really enjoyed.
It was like twist and then retwist and then retwist again. Like they just kept. It's like we were like marionettes. They just kept dangling us where they wanted us to go, and then eventually, we were there. So
because it's like a 2-hour. Almost 2-hour movie.
Yeah, it's almost 2 hours.
Yeah, I paused it at one point to go switch the laundry. I was like, wait, I only have 30 minutes left? What?
Yeah,
this has gone so fast.
Yeah, the movie, it keeps rolling. When you think about it, 2 hours, and it's like, it spans just a couple of days. Mm-hmm. But, so unlike some of these serial killer movies where they, they're all going on for months and months and months because they can't find, like, this is just rapid pace. Yeah. So I also am going to give this movie an A. I saw this movie 3 nights in a row at the theater when it came out. It really scratched that itch for me. I really enjoy this movie. Even on repeat viewing, I really enjoy this movie because there's just so many little details that you can pull out as a horror fan and respect what they've done for the genre. They make a comment earlier about, a horror movie being some Wes Carpenter film, which is a combination of Wes Craven and John Carpenter, 2 big horror time directors. And so, it's a big testament to Wes Craven, the director of the movie, because he very easily could have just stayed within his own movies that he's made, but he expanded it to cover the whole horror genre instead of just what he had put out on film. So, but no, I give it an A as well. Ella, what do you give it?
An A.
An A. Good. I'm glad you gave it an A. So let's get to the educational portion of the show. What lessons, Courtney, would you take from this movie? If you were an educator in this universe.
y'all have got to have a plan about something. I mean, it is insane how like nobody knew what to do. Just like school suspended until further notice. It's like, no, we as teachers, like, we have active shooter plans. Like, we have all that stuff. So it's like, you have got to, as an educator, have a plan for something. Like, the odds of it happening are very slim, but, oof. It's just like them just, all right, go. Police enforced curfew. We're done.
I will say, though, to be fair, granted, this movie came out in 99. The first major, like, Columbine, the Columbine school shooting. This movie came out in 96. Columbine was 99.
Yeah.
So there really wasn't a plan.
Right.
There were no school shooter plans.
No,
there were no crisis plans. I remember in junior high, which would have been a couple of years before this movie came out, we had several days in a row of bomb threats at our junior high, to where the first time we took it very seriously. Everybody evacuated the school. We went down the street. There were two churches about 2 blocks away. 7th grade went to one church. 8th grade went to another one. Like, it was fear and panic. We had a bomb threat. The next day, we did the same thing. We had, I think, one more bomb threat that week and a couple more within the next couple of weeks. And we just stayed in there. Like, it got to the point where, like, even the police department's like, we'll come and investigate.
Yeah.
But we're not going to evacuate school for this, because this is exactly what they're wanting to do.
Yeah.
And of course, they never found anything. And once we could evacuate in school, we quit having bomb threats.
Mm-hmm.
But yet nowadays, can you imagine how would we react to something like this going on? I mean, but I don't know. I mean, just last night in Macomb, there was shooting and a murder.
Yeah. And, like, many were injured. And it's like, you don't like to think about that. And it's like, you can't have a plan all the time.
No.
But I think just, like, especially as teachers, like, talking with your kids, like, if something were to happen, because so many people, and you might disagree with me and that's okay, but so many people are scared to, like, do the active shooter drills because it might scare the kids. And I'm like, okay, but...
Do 'em.
But do it. Like,
you know what's going to be even scarier for those kids? An active shooter.
Yes. And I'm like, the kindergartners, like, why do we tell them, like, there's a skunk in the building? That is my biggest pet peeve. Like, I tell my kids, like, if somebody is angry or if there is someone who is not a good person and they try to come into this building, like, this is what we would do.
Right.
Because it's like, no, if there's a skunk in the building, like, we're going to plug our nose. That's it.
Right. Yeah.
We're not going to shut the lights off. Yeah.
And everybody go be quiet and go stand in that corner. Why? It's just a skunk.
Exactly. And
I mean,
so
that's going to create more commotion out of your kindergartners than anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's just, I don't know, like, I would rather, like, kids know, and obviously don't say, like, hey, someone's in here to shoot the school up.
Right.
But talk about, like, the real, like, someone is not okay, someone is angry, that type of it. Because if not, then kids are never going to know what to expect.
No, they won't. Not at all. Everything's going to be sugar coated, and
yeah.
I mean, I can understand the principle behind it. You know, of we don't want to create more commotion than we have to, but let's call a spade a spade. I mean, you know, I mean, I don't know. There's only so long you put the kids' gloves on.
Yeah.
So, but I'm with you there. You kind of took a little bit of mine, which is just fine. I was going to say, like, just cancel school. Like,
yeah, don't come back.
Yeah, students have been murdered, but make sure you guys get your science done.
Yeah.
You know, like, you just cancel school. And I guess more would be, you know, schools, make sure if you're making major decisions, and local police force, if you're making major decisions, make sure your communication is there, and make sure you're going to back it up, because, again, you just put in a curfew, and then there's a house party.
And the deputy is driving to the house party.
And you send a cop to the house party. Break up the party.
Yeah.
You don't just send them in there and be like, it's okay, I'm here. No. You just break up the party. Like, so yeah, just communication is key. So, Ella, as a student, do you have anything to share from here? If not, that's okay.
Not really, but just close the door if you're gonna leave the room. So no one comes in.
She has so many scary movies to watch.
Yeah. I like it. You know, Courtney, you and I go like super critical, and she's like, just close the door. You don't need a contingency plan if you close the door.
Exactly.
You don't need to coordinate and communicate with law enforcement if you just close the door. I like that. Because Sydney, she closed.
So then half the people would still be alive.
Yeah, she would. They would. You're absolutely right. So, all right. That's good. I like that. So, Ella, thank you for being on the show with us.
Yes.
Was it fun?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you still as nervous as you were? You are still nervous?
No. I said no.
Oh, okay. Oh, no, I didn't hear you say no.
I didn't either. Neither. It must have just not left her.
Yeah, the little glitchy. It's all right. But no, we really appreciate having you on. I think we will. I think we'll have you back sometime in April to cover Scream 2. I had a lot of fun watching it with you too, kiddo. So that was fun that we got to watch Scream together. We broke it up over the last 2 mornings. So we had to wait for little brother to...
Even though I asked a lot of questions.
Yes, you did. It can be difficult watching a movie with this one, Courtney. At one point, she says, I've already told this to Mom, Ella, but I'll share it here. We're watching it, and she goes, the movie only's been on for like 6 seconds, and she's already gotten 3 phone calls. I go, the movie's only been on like 6 seconds, and you've already asked 14 questions. So... And they're all, so many of them are just obscure. They're like, why is Stu wearing that red robe? I don't know. Like, why would I know this? And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, he must have changed outfits, because after that, he didn't have that on.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. You figure it was his house, so. So, little brother Lucas wants to be a guest next week. So we're going to bring a 3rd grader in for next week's show. He's a little envious and jealous of Ella being on this week. He's like, can I be on a show? I said, yeah. So I said, well, what movie do you want to watch, buddy? And he said, Critters, a movie that you've never even heard of.
Nope.
So we will be watching next week, if you're fine with it, Courtney.
Oh, yes, 100%.
Okay. We're going to back it up 10 years, and we're going to watch 1986's Critters. I love this movie. I say that a lot, but this movie it's fun. A group of small but vicious alien creatures called Krites escape from an alien prison transport vessel and land near a small farm town on Earth, pursued by 2 shape-shifting bounty hunters. Little sci-fi, little comedy, little horror. It's one of those that I've been like last year. I was like, I want to introduce the kids to some scary movies, but I don't want them to be like scary.
Yeah.
And so this was one that Lucas and I watched, and he really liked it, and I did too. So when I asked him which one he wanted to watch, he didn't even hesitate. Critters. I'm like, okay. So if you're fine with it, we will be back next week to watch Critters.
Sounds good.
You might recognize a couple faces in here, like the mom from E.T. is in this movie.
Okay.
Scott Grimes, he's got a recurring part on ER. He's in this movie. I don't know if you watch ER at all.
Nope.
Billy Zane, he played Kate Winslet's fiance on Titanic. You not seen Titanic?
No.
Oh my. Okay, well. Never mind. There won't be any people in this movie you recognize.
I've seen E.T., that's all.
Fair enough. So, yeah, we'll be back next week to watch Critters. This one's it's again one that just keeps moving. It's like an hour and 26 minutes. It's a lot of fun. So, Ella, thanks again for coming on. Is there anything you'd like to tell people out there listening and viewing that you'd like to share? Anything?
Not really.
Not really? Okay. That's fine. Well, thanks for coming on our
No.
show? No. Thanks for coming on the show. It's been nice having another guest.
Yes.
So, all right. Again, thanks for listening and watching. Anybody, social media, you can find links down below. And we will be back next week to watch Critters. So for Deducation, I'm Mike.
I'm Courtney.
And say bye, Ella.
Bye.
It's like the news reporting
I know.
cast.
A little bit. Yeah, a little delay. So, all right. Well, we'll see you guys next week.